Hello and welcome back to this month's AOC video. Before we start, I would like to point out a few things with how our feedback works in the meetings. We talk about our suggestions, Hi-Rez gives us feedback on said suggestions, and then a couple days after the meeting, Hi-Rez gets back to us with a document with what we are allowed to tell the community. That being said, this meeting had a few suggestions that I won't be allowed to discuss in detail. So, into the meeting. First was Hyuga, who spoke mainly about champion balance and item change. He brought up Koga and suggested some buffs to him. He wants to bring Koga back into the meta in a healthy way and utilising more of his kit. One suggestion was to Adrenaline Junkie and lowering the damage to generate 1 energy from 80 to 75. Hi-Rez said that Koga's talents are currently not on their list to be reworked, but did say that they could look into Adrenaline Junkie. Next was Resilience buff to 75 max a level. Hi-Rez said that they don't want to change Resilience in response to CC being more prominent based on picks and bans. They said that the meta will shift regardless and are happy with 60% being the max at the moment. Hyuga brought up Ying and suggested some ideas to make her more viable. He said to possibly give her a card similar to Maldamba's Eerie Presence, so when using Life Exchange and you miss your heal, you get the cooldown refunded. He also suggested a buff to Life Exchange heal from 700 to 800 or 850. Hi-Rez responded by saying that Resonance will be getting a facelift soon, which should make that talent more confirmable to play, but they personally don't think that Ying is in dire needs of buffs. They will however discuss in the future to buff Ying's Life Exchange, but don't believe it is necessary for her performance. Lastly from Hyuga was Strix. He said that Strix is in a pretty good state, however the pistol feels a little lackluster, and gave some suggestions for buffs. Hi-Rez said that they want Strix to stick for a little while longer due to him being very frustrating to play against when he is meta. So the next AOC member was SterileTick. He brought up GM rework and some balance. He really wants the GM rank to be rewarded. He offered an idea that might make it possible for Hi-Rez to create rewards for players who reach this rank. His idea was to only give GM rewards to those still at that rank at the end of the split. Now if you remember from the beginning of the video where I said that some of Hi-Rez's responses were going to be very vague, well this is one of them. It was marked yellow, meaning we cannot tell you exactly what was said, but just know it was definitely discussed and they did like this suggestion. Sterile wanted some nerfs to Terminus as well. He said he's very unfun to play against and not very fun to play as. He wants some nerfs to cards and possibly allowing Rekka to somehow affect his Siphon. Now a while back I went through every champion card and tested which ones were proccing on shields and deployables. Terminus currently has 4 doing this, meaning he can game Siphon and Calamity Blast just by attacking shields and deployables. SterileTick did include this, and I personally think if any changes were to be made to Term, it should be fixing these cards rather than nerfing him. Hi-Rez's response to this was also marked yellow, so I'm not allowed to get into detail about their answer. Next was TaNaDisney. She wanted some Vora nerfs, specifically to her damage reduction and damage immunity. She also wanted to discuss Vora's ult and said it feels as though players just spam it to escape rather than using it as an offensive ability. Again marked yellow, can't really go into details about this. She also brought up the server issues the game has been having lately. Hi-Rez said that their ops team will investigate the issue, but did say that if you are having laggy, high ping games and crashes, then you need to report it so they can see exactly what might be causing it. You can report the matches at paladins.com/matchid. I'll link it in the description, but make sure you don't report matches that are more than 14 days old so the ops team can investigate them. After TaNaDisney was Jaimeras. He brought up a block button and balance. He wanted to have an actual button to block players from sending them messages, which you can already do by typing in /block and then their username. I believe you can also ignore players by doing the same with the /ignore. Hi-Rez said that patch 5 is already locked in, but they are open to the idea of looking into this. He wanted to also see Leon get a nerf to Swift Jade, as he believes a large part of the community thinks she requires no skill and has very confirmable damage. Hi-Rez said that they will talk about this card for future updates. Next was Mariam. She had some champion balance and asked a few questions. She wanted to see Inara get a buff to her talents and claimed she is outclassed by other tanks at the moment and would love to see her be meta again. Hi-Rez said that they agree she could have some buffs but don't want to significantly shift from where she is now. Mariam also wanted some Leon nerfs, one being her card inheritance. Hi-Rez's response was that Leon doesn't have a super high win rate, so they are slightly hesitant to change much about her. They do agree that it could be an opportunity to look into her cards, however. She wanted to see Cauterized buff since double support is kind of anti-fun at the moment. Hi-Rez's response to this was marked yellow, so I can't discuss what was said unfortunately. They do agree that the current double support needs addressing, mainly Fury and Grover. You can see more of her suggestions in the document in the description. Next up was Alive. He wanted to see improvements on the friends request area and champion balance. He brought up card nerfs for Tyra, Dredge and Tiberius. Hyra's basically agreed that the cards could be worth looking into. You can see the cards listed in the document. Alive also wanted to see a buff to Inara, and Hyra's generally agree with his suggestions but want to be careful with Mother's Grace talent since her CC immunity is a very powerful element to her kit. He also wants some buffs to Eevee, Strix and Skye, but they didn't really agree with these suggestions. I was after Alive and I brought up champion balance. I suggested that they change the way Tyra's In the Fray card works since it currently procs and stacks multiple times. I suggested an internal cooldown on the card so you can still use this card with her other talents. Hyra's agreed with this suggestion and there is a strong possibility that they will change it. Next champion I brought up was Ceres. I basically would like to see some nerfs to 2 cards. I want a small internal cooldown on the card Fade to Black, since lately I've been finding Ceres is incredibly difficult to kill and this ability is really strong, yet she has very little downtime on it. I also suggested a small nerf to the card Veil, which also makes her hard to flank. Hyra said that they agree that having more opportunities to kill Ceres would be a healthy change. They could tone down these 2 cards in their frequency uptime. My last suggestion was kind of big, but I want to explain my reasonings for it. It was to enable crossplay in ranked to help with the uneven matchmaking. I would much rather have a team with similar skilled players on any platform than a team with 4 ranked divisions apart. An ex-pro player, Penguin, actually gave me this idea and I just thought it was great. Most of my community agree that they wouldn't mind playing against other platforms as long as they were in their skill bracket. I did suggest the possibility of having it work similar to casual crossplay where you can choose to have it either on or off. Hyra's acknowledged this idea, but it was marked yellow so I can't give specifics about it. I would actually like to know your feedback on this idea, so leave a comment and tell me what you think about it. Last AOC member was Syberbolt. He brought up bringing back recolors, which personally is such a good idea. There is a huge list of his reasonings in the document that you can read in your own time, but he believes it would be a great way for people to spend their gold on and to grind the game a little more with the opportunity to unlock different colours of champions. They didn't really agree with Syberbolt on this one too much, and that's all I can really say for it. Finally, he brought up VGS lines becoming difficult to understand with the new skins. Harris simply agreed and said that they will have their audio designer look into this. That was everything from this meeting. Be sure to join my Discord and put your suggestions forward. The text document of this meeting is also in the description along with the links of all AOC members. Thank you for listening and I'll see you next meeting. Bye!